The fake outrage or the manufactured or the selective outrage over Ukraine is amazing. So the outrage you're feeling now is the outrage you should feel when the United States bombs or occupies a country, which is every day. So if you're feeling outrage over what Putin is doing in Ukraine, you should feel like this every day of your life. Of course you don't, because you're propagandized and you don't even know it. Just like you've been propagandized to think what you think about the Ukraine right now, which is 100% not what's happening. The thing you think is not happening. So I just want to just a little bit this is just for the hypocrisy meter. So this is Condoleezza Rice, who was instrumental in overthrowing a country that had nothing to do with attacking us. And then they instituted a torture program to cover it up, and which is still going on. Fox News host Harris Faulkner turns to Condoleezza Rice this morning and says, when you invade a sovereign nation, that is a war crime. Let's see what she says about it.
That invade a sovereign nation, that is a war crime. I mean, I think we're at just a real basic point there.
Well, I'd agree. It is certainly against every principle of national law and national order, and that's why I'm throwing the book at them now.
So I don't know if you can, it's hard. The volume's a little low on this clip. I apologize, but what she said is that when you invade a sovereign nation, that is a war crime. And Condoleezza Rice was nodding, yes, it is. And she then said it goes against everything and every established norm and all the rules. And establishment factors are going all out, leveraging this to whitewash their own past act. So she's, I mean, it's close to a war. I mean, how they committed a war crime. They invaded a country illegally, killed hundreds of thousands of people, displaced millions, ruined lives, lied about it, and then ordered a torture program to cover that up. So, and this guy says Condoleezza Rice just admitted when you invade a sovereign nation, it's a war crime. So when is the Bush administration heading to The Hague? So that's amazing. All right. And not only that, but what about Libya? Again, we invaded it on false pretenses. And we turned it into a failed state with open slave markets. So the people are way worse off in both countries than they were before we got there. You could say that about Afghanistan. You could say that about Somalia. You could say that about Yemen. Here's what Rania Kalik says. She says the invasion and occupation of Iraq was the biggest crime of this century. It killed 1 million people, was preceded by a 13-year-long siege that killed 500,000 Iraqi babies, and was led and or supported by many of the same countries who are horrified by the invasion of Ukraine. And this is awesome. So this is Samantha Power. Now, Samantha Power used to be the UN rep for the United States, and she's the biggest warmonger in the world. She is, if you want to see someone lie through their teeth about murdering people, it's Samantha Power, who is a murderer and a liar about it. And now she's pretending to care about the people of Ukraine because she's a propagandist. Watch this.
So I'm here at the crossing point where Ukrainians are entering Poland. There's a food station where people are getting their first hot meal, in some cases in 4 days. There are mothers all around with their children, some cases with 3 children, infants, with toddlers. And the Poles have brought food stocks, teddy bears, blankets for people to pick up as they begin what might be new lives here in Poland. But this is an incredibly important part of their journey and an overdue part of what has been a harrowing journey for the Ukrainians who have fled Putin's war.
So she really cares about the people of Ukraine because she cares about people. She's a people person. But I apparently shouldn't care anything about the people in Iraq. Amid the fighting in Ukraine, the UN is warning Yemen, where the U.S. has helped Saudi Arabia wage a vicious war and a blockade since 2015, will become hell on earth as food and fuel prices increase. She doesn't care about the people in Yemen. Isn't that weird? I didn't see her.
Oh, and Jimmy, she was the UN ambassador for the U.S.
Yeah.
When the Obama administration gave the green light to Saudi Arabia to attack Yemen. It's not as if Saudi Arabia woke up one day and said, let's start bombing Yemen. First, they went to Washington to ask for Obama's blessing. And after Obama gave the green light, they started this mass murdering offensive. And Samantha Power, while she was at the UN claiming to be some humanitarian, her job was to cover up for Saudi Arabia and allow that mass murder campaign to continue. And Joe Biden, when he ran, he promised to treat Saudi Arabia as a pariah. He was going to stop weapon sales to Ukraine. If you remember all that, he comes into office and he says, we're only now going to sell Saudi Arabia defensive weapons.
Yeah.
which is euphemism for basically selling Saudi Arabia all the same weapons, just with a new branding name. And that mass murder campaign continues. And of course, Samantha Power gets to pretend now as if she's some kind of humanitarian who cares about refugees, when she's probably helped personally cause more refugees than almost anyone else on earth, not just in Yemen, but also in Libya, where she was a key supporter of the war. She helped convince Obama to go to war along with Hillary Clinton and Ben Rhodes and Susan Rice, and also in Syria, where she was a major supporter of the dirty war, which has created millions of refugees as well. So now it's her job to pretend as if she cares about refugees when she has helped cause more refugees than almost anybody else on this planet.
Here is David Frum. David Frum. This is amazing. So many Putin friendlies in the U.S. live by performative bullshit, he says. They assume that Putin himself lived by performative bullshit too. Now reality has erupted, and the Putin friendlies are stunned to discover that the dictator they stand for is something more than a fellow troll. Oh my God. So here's what Glenn Greenwald says. He says it very well. He says that someone centrally involved in the planning and implementation of one of the worst and most unjustified naked acts of aggression in decades, U.S. invading Iraq on the other side of the world, can now credibly posture as a defender of international rules and laws is amazing. That is amazing that David Frum is not in prison and that he's allowed back in polite society to the point where he's an editor at The Atlantic. And now you know why The Atlantic sucks. So there's a guy who's central in, killing 1 million people. And now he's acting like he cares about the rules. That's funny. In moments of crisis, people often show their true colors. So why are people caring about this and not the other? Well, the Telegraph says they seem so like us. That is what makes it so shocking. War is no longer something visited upon impoverished and remote populations. It can happen to anyone, writes Daniel Hanan. Right, because they're blonde and blue-eyed and they have white skin. Here's another one. CBS reporter calls Ukraine relatively civilized as opposed to Iraq and Afghanistan. Relatively civilized. There's another one. It's very emotional for me because I see European people with blue eyes and blonde hair being killed. So now you know why it's being covered this way. Hey, here's something I wanted to run past you, Aaron. Did you see this? This is from the Kyiv Independent Twitter feed. It says Switzerland adopts EU sanctions, freezes Putin's assets. Switzerland broke its historically neutral status to adopt EU sanctions against Russia over its war on Ukraine. What is that about?
Well, that just shows the power of the U.S. over Europe and how in Europe there's this inability for anyone to have a spine. And everyone has subordinated their foreign policy to Washington. And Switzerland going along with these sanctions, Germany going along with canceling the Nord Stream 2, Germany deciding to send weapons to Ukraine when they've had a long time policy against that, because it was Germany that killed millions of Russians in World War II. So out of a historical debt to Russia and the Soviet Union, they've refrained from that. Even Germany is going against that now. And Germany is basically choosing to raise energy prices for its own people, because that's what cutting off Russian gas pipelines will do, just so it can please Washington. It speaks completely to the power of the U.S. and the inability of anybody in Europe to try to chart some kind of independent course.
And you saw the people reporting that bogus story of the killing of those 14 soldiers who told the Russians "F you," and then that was all made up.
Yeah, well, they told the Russians to F off. I think that part's real, but the rest of it is then afterwards they got massacred by Russia, and then the video comes out, they're all fine and they're prisoners. Of course, yeah, but that happens all the time, and there are plenty of dupes out there who will just repeat anything that gets said on Twitter if it fits the right narrative.
Okay, so I'm going to cover that next, actually, but I know you have to go. So thank you so much for joining us. Everybody check out Aaron's writing at mate.substack.com and check out his work on Pushback at the Gray Zone on YouTube. Anything else you'd like to say, Aaron, before we say goodbye?
No, listen, thanks, Jimmy. This is an insane time. People are getting more and more jingoistic. Everyone is rallying behind the flag, whatever that means, which means right now supporting the arming of neo-Nazis in Ukraine and the expansion of a hostile military alliance to Russia's borders. The space for dissent is closing. 20 years ago, when we were in the midst of Iraq war fever, you could count on some progressive outlets to be standing up and breaking the sound barrier and countering pro-war propaganda. Today, so many of the same people who did that are going along with it. So I'm grateful to have you, to have my colleagues at the Gray Zone, Max Blumenthal and Anya Parnpill, and the small corner of leftist media that is still holding on to our principles. And we're not going to stop. We're filling a very big void right now, and I'm grateful to be a part of it with you.
Okay, right back at you. And again, thanks for the huge lane, everybody. I'd rather not have it, but I'll take it. That'll be the silver lining. Everybody's leaving us a huge lane to report Ukraine correctly. We're doing live stand-up comedy in Los Angeles, and Houston, and Addison, and back in Tampa, Des Moines, Omaha. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a link for all the tickets for all our live shows. See you there.